Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining in another week for what will be our last show until the end of the summer, believe it or not. Like many television shows that take the summer off, we'll be doing the same, but we'll be back here in August just in time for the college football season to bring you a lot of new stuff. But let's head on with today's show, and later on I'll have with me a guest, Mike Petrella. We'll be talking all about his medical marijuana store in Wintersville, Ohio, something we haven't talked about here on this show before, so I'm looking forward to that. But first, some of our usual features. And let's start off with some current events and some news here in the Valley. Wheeling City Manager Bob Herron reinstated by Wheeling City Council this week. Of course, Herron, charged with driving under the influence as a result of an incident in March, pled guilty this week. Will be receiving some community service time and be having one of those locks on his vehicle where you have to blow before you can drive, things of that nature. But this week, reinstated by Wheeling City Council. Not a unanimous vote, a couple of dissents there, but I really like the way that the Wheeling City Council approached this. I mean, they really thought it through. They spent a lot of time dealing with it, talked about the pros and cons, and they even placed some restrictions upon his return. He won't be allowed to operate a city vehicle anymore, and some other restrictions as well. And a lot of, comments on social media. Back when this initially happened, a lot of comments on social media, and one of the things I said was, hey, look, driving under the influence is not okay. There's no doubt about that. It's not something that people should do. It's not something that should be condoned. However, people make mistakes. And I even referenced the Bible passage, he who is without sin cast the first stone. We've all made mistakes. I've made plenty in my life. And the question is, can someone learn from those mistakes? Are they remorseful, and is it likely that they won't do it again? And I trust our Wheeling City Council, because I think it's a very good one, to assess those things, and I think they spent the time doing that, to evaluate whether or not those things have occurred, whether or not the city will be better off with Mr. Herron returning to his role as city manager. And our city council decided, by a majority vote, that was the case, that he would be, the city would be better off with him back in that role. So, and these are folks, by the way, who are up for election next year. The Wheeling City Council and Mayor are up for election in 2020. And so, that's got to be on their mind, how people are going to react to that and how that may affect them. And I just want to say this. I think this city council has done really good things. If you look at what's been happening downtown, what's been happening, in the city of Wheeling throughout, I think positive things are happening. And I think it's because they've looked at things at a little bit different angle, different way than perhaps people have in the past. And I also think that's because Mr. Herron has been doing a good job, and a number of people spoke on his behalf in front of City Council this week and said the same, including, former mayors and people of that nature. So I appreciate the time that the City Council took to assess this, and certainly hope that everyone can realize, okay, the decision's been made, someone made a mistake, let's forgive them, let's support him going forward if he's going to be in this position to help our city move forward. So. Kudos to Wheeling City Council for assessing this the right way and taking the time to do it, and for not even reaching a unanimous decision. I think it's good when you see people on council disagree with one another but still respect one another, and that's what seems to have happened. Speaking of elections, 2020 will be here before we know it, and politics are really starting to heat up throughout the state of West Virginia. The West Virginia Supreme Court is going to have 3 seats open in the election next year. And of course, in changes in recent years, it's now just one election. It's not, it's a nonpartisan race. So it's not Republicans or Democrats. It's just running for justice. And there's one election that'll be in the primary, but for 3 spots, which is unusual. Of course, the reason there's 3 spots, Justice Workman's seat is up anyway. Justice Armstead, his seat is up. He took over former Justice Ketchum's seat. But then also, of course, Justice Lawfrey, who's currently, serving a federal prison sentence, lost his seat as a result of that. And that seat has been assumed by Judge Hutchison, now Justice Hutchison. And so he will only be able to sit until the next election, which is next year in May of 2020. So 3 spots will be open, pretty unusual. Sometimes there's 1, sometimes there's 2. There's almost never 3. And people have started to throw their hat in the ring. Judge Tabbitt in Kanawha County down in Charleston, who finished 3rd in the special election last year, has already gotten back into the race. Bill Schwartz, Charleston lawyer, he ran that race but finished pretty far down the ballot. He's thrown his hat back in the ring. Justice Armstead intending to run again. So it'll be interesting to see who else gets into those races and how that will shake down, considering the number of seats open and we're electing a majority. There's only 5 justices on the West Virginia Supreme Court. 3 will be elected next year. So that's more than half of the Supreme Court elected in 2020. Of course, there will also be a governor's race, and people are starting to, talk about who's going to be challenging Governor Jim Justice. Likely he'll run again. Of course, was a Democrat when he ran last time, then switched back over to Republican after he was elected. Stephen Smith, a Democrat, has been mounting a significant campaign already throughout the course of the year. His theme is West Virginia Can't Wait. And, he's really been out there hustling, has been to all 55 counties on a 55-county tour over the first half of this year, and is really doing a lot of things, running a grassroots campaign. There's been rumblings that Senator Joe Manchin could get involved in the governor's race. I don't think it's likely to happen. I mean, he talked about it last time as well, and there was a lot of thought that he had done that kind of to keep people out of the race so he could get the person he wanted in the race. And I think that's probably the case again. Look, Senator Manchin was just elected to another term in the U.S. Senate in 2018 in a very, very heated race, of course, with the Attorney General Patrick Morrisey, where he had to spend a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of time, and it got really heated. It's a 6-year term. He's just into that. Does he really want to run another tough race again, heading into 2020 and, really, say, risk possibly going on with a loss? He's had a number of successful campaigns in a row. Of course, years ago in the 90s, he lost the governor's race to Charlotte Pritt and was a very, very bitter race there, but has been pretty successful since then. I don't know that he'd want to get involved in a very heated race. I think it's probably just maybe to keep people out, but who knows? He could get in. We'll know more about that later, perhaps this summer or even into the fall. And the other question is, what is Patrick Morrisey going to do? His Attorney General seat will be up. Will he run for re-election for that seat? Will he look to get into the governor's race or some other race? Hard to say. 3 U.S. congressional seats are going to be open, maybe for the last time ever in West Virginia. We could lose a congressional seat after the 2020 census because our population's been dwindling. So this could be the last time that there are 3 congressional seats in West Virginia. But what will happen there? Who's going to throw their hat into the ring in that race? And then, of course, the entire House of Delegates in West Virginia and half of the Senate seats will be open, including the seats of local incumbents Ryan Weld in the 1st senatorial district. He's from Brooke County, and of course Mike Maroney in the 2nd. He's from Marshall County. Those seats will both be open, so it'll be interesting to see, first of all, who gets in those races, and second of all, will both of those guys run again for their seats? I think Ryan Weld likely to run again. A lot of talk that Mike Maroney may not run for that Senate seat in the 2nd. He's not, I don't think, been crazy about the political process. Hasn't been able to be there for a lot of votes due to work commitments and other things, so he may not run again. So we'll keep an eye throughout the summer on who may be talking about getting into those races and what may occur there. The one thing I would urge everyone to do is pay attention, listen to where the candidates stand on the issues, and vote based upon what you hear in the issues, not just based upon party, because really important to know where people stand. And I'm going to give you a quote for this week as well, and I think it's appropriate for this time of year. Usually I give you a quote from, either an actor or perhaps an athlete or a former politician. This week I'm going to give you an original. This is a Jamie Bordas quote, and that is that summer's a time for us. A time to do things we love, a time to enjoy life, a time to shine. We can be and should be our best in summer. So I urge you all to have a great summer. I think it can be a lot of fun. It's a great time of year. Puts you into a better mood, a better spirit. Kids are out there smiling. A lot of fun time in summer. So I hope that everyone enjoys it. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll have with me Mike Petrella. We'll be talking all about medical marijuana. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Country music lives on at the 2019 Blame My Roots Festival, starring Trace Adkins, Tyler Farr, Joe Diffie, Whiskey Myers, Lindsay L., Gabby Barrett, and more. July 18th through the 20th at Valley View Campgrounds in Belmont, Ohio. Tickets now at BlameMyRootsFestival.com.
You earned it. Let us help you save it. Belmont Savings Bank. Focused on your future.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. I have with me Mike Petrella, who is with Ohio Valley Natural Relief, which is in Wintersville, Ohio, which is a medical marijuana dispensary and something kind of new here to the Valley, and good to be talking about it so people can be informed. Mike, thanks for being here on the show.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you having me.
You know, this is very new to this area. You know, some of the parts of our country, maybe and other parts of our country out west have been familiar with this for a while, but here in the Valley, people aren't really familiar with what's going on with medical marijuana and what you do. So tell us a little bit about that.
So medical marijuana, like you said, it's been across the country. It's mainstreaming, if you will, and it is brand new to the Ohio Valley. Ohio was the 25th state to get licensed with medical marijuana by Governor Kasich in 2016. And I think it's opening the door for other states. A lot of people see Ohio and they see how they do things, and hopefully it will bring a new light to medical marijuana here in the Valley as well. A big thing that we try to do is try to educate people. A lot of people, as you said, have a lot of questions. They don't understand what it is. They think it's like out west. It's not recreational, it's a medical facility, and that's what we're trying to really promote and show people what the medical benefits of medical marijuana really are.
Now, in order to be able to come into your store and to receive the medical marijuana, I presume somebody has to have a prescription to do that?
Not a prescription, it's actually called a recommendation
by
law. So what happens is you have one of the 21 qualifying conditions that the state approved as a condition. You would go see a recommending physician. Now that's not your normal family doctor. There's only roughly 475 in the state of Ohio that are licensed to recommend marijuana. And basically you go see them and they register you in the database with the state, and then after that, it's very easy and simple. You come to our dispensary and we take it from there.
How does it work in terms of how much they're allowed to get and how often, things of that nature?
So we are regulated by the State Pharmacy Board of Ohio, and they have put barriers there where people aren't allowed to abuse the system. So within 90 days, usually it's up to 8 ounces of plant material that someone is allowed to purchase at one time. Nobody has really tried to take any advantage of the system, I would say. A lot of people come in and they like to try different products and different strains, and they come in and do those maybe once a week. A lot of the stuff, nobody would really need that much in 90 days, in my opinion.
Now, how does that work then? So do they actually use it there in the store, or do they take it home with them? How does that work?
Everything has to be taken home. So when we get done making our purchase, we seal it in a bag, and it has to be wait till the patient is at home, in their own home, to be able to use it. They cannot use it in the car. It's kind of like an open container almost. It all has to be at home. They can't drive around and use it. They can transport it if they go somewhere in the state of Ohio, as long as it's sealed in their car.
Now, what about in terms of you saying transport it? You know, let's say someone's going out of town for the weekend, but let's say to Columbus. Can they then use it while they're, say, in Columbus, or can they only use it when they're back home? How does that work?
No, they are allowed to use it, actually. They want everyone to use it in their home, but they know people travel. They know people have to make plans, do things. As you said, summertime's coming up. A lot of people go out, and as long as they don't abuse the system and they carry it in a concealed container, which it comes in, and in the appropriate bag, and they have their medical marijuana card on them, they shouldn't have any issue by traveling with it. And they are allowed to use it as long as it's concealed in a household.
I was going to ask you about that. You mentioned a card. I figured there was some way that, you know, police and others would know that, you know, hey, they've got a permit to use this, so to speak.
Correct. So it just comes on, actually a lot of people have them on their cell phones. You just pull up a link and it gets downloaded on your cell phone, or a lot of people print them as well or laminate the card. It's actually, a lot of states have driver's license almost. That's what they look like. They actually don't do that in Ohio. So it's basically you just print it off. You can bring in the piece of paper, or you can keep it on your cell phone.
How long have you been open there now in Wintersville?
We've been open since January.
And how did you get into this?
I got into this really in 2016. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and during his cancer treatments, he was getting a lot of opiates and a lot of narcotics that were actually making him worse than better. He was allergic to a lot of the drugs they were trying to give him. So watching him battle with cancer and seeing the struggle between the drugs they were giving him and going through the cancer treatments, I thought to myself, you know, there has to be an alternative way of relief for somebody that's in that much pain. So he passed away 2 months to the day that he was diagnosed. And after that, I just kind of started researching. I started learning, teaching myself. I went out west to Colorado, and I visited cultivation sites, processing sites, dispensaries, and I kind of learned the industry from the ground up. Basically taught myself and got ready to apply after Governor Kasich passed it in 2016.
I assume there aren't many that have the licenses that you have, in the area.
Correct. In the area, there's 2 of us in Wintersville. I'm the locally owned dispensary. We're on State Route 43 next to the gas light. There's another one in Wintersville. It's an outside corporation from Chicago, and then there's also one in the East Liverpool area. But overall in the entire state, there's only going to be 56 dispensaries for the
whole
entire state of Ohio. Yep.
Interesting. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with Mike Petrella about medical marijuana and what the future may hold. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Hi, I'm Mitch Vingle with Wheelhouse Creative, but you may remember me from my days covering the Mountaineers. Every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, I'll be hosting Off the Record, a series of sports shows featuring the very best personalities. And don't forget, Thursday is Burger Night at Generations. Check out their delicious hamburgers and their famous pierogies. And remember, it's all off the record.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, Mike Petrella with Ohio Valley Natural Relief, which is a medical marijuana dispensary in Wintersville. And we've been talking about kind of what all goes into it and how it came about. And, Mike, one of the things you mentioned is there are approved conditions, medical conditions by the state of Ohio. And what are some examples of the conditions that folks may have that would qualify them to be able to receive medical marijuana?
So a few of the conditions that people have that we see a lot of is cancer, chronic pain, PTSD, and fibromyalgia is a big one that we see a lot of patients with. And next month, the Medical Board of Ohio is hopefully going to approve anxiety and autism for the state of Ohio, which autism, a lot of us are hoping for children's sake that a lot of kids with autism, the CBD, the tinctures, the gummies, those types of things can really help with different forms of autism.
There's been a push in West Virginia for medical marijuana to be permitted. Sean Fluharty, a local delegate here in Ohio County, has been pushing that for quite some time now. And what do you think the future holds in West Virginia for medical marijuana?
Actually, my consultants and I, we've been looking into West Virginia as a possible state to expand to. So I know it's a little bit in limbo right now. They're really working out the banking issue, which is a big issue in the medical marijuana industry, and hopefully West Virginia gets that figured out and gets the program up and rolling. I would think within the next year or two they'll probably be up and running, and hopefully Ohio Valley Natural Relief, we may have a dispensary here.
This may seem like a silly question, but where do you get the marijuana? I mean, do you grow it yourself, or do you have to go get it from somewhere else?
No, it's all grown and processed in the state of Ohio. When the state did their licenses, they licensed cultivators, who are the ones that actually grow the plant. They grow it and mature it, and then it goes to processors. The processors are also in Ohio, and they turn it into different forms of administration between gummies, tinctures, oils, transdermal patches, those types of things. That's where it all comes strictly in the state of Ohio.
Okay, so from what I hear you saying, then it's not just something that people smoke. There's different ways you can, receive it.
Absolutely, yeah. So smoking is actually legal in the state of Ohio. Even with the plant material, the state wants everyone to vaporize it, which that way they don't have any lung issues that come up from smoking it. But yeah, there's lots of different forms of administration. A lot of people don't like even the idea of vaping the plant material, so a lot of people use the tinctures, which is a sublingual drop right under your tongue, and it goes right into your bloodstream. There's also oil, which people do vape. Some people actually cook with different things as well. And then we also sell edibles. Right now, the gummies have hit the market, and down the road, there's going to be capsules, just like a gel capsule, almost like an Aleve. And then there's also going to be transdermal patches that'll come out as well. So a lot of different products coming.
So the gummies, I mean, is that almost like you would see like a gummy bear almost type thing? I mean, or is it different than that?
It's a little different. Nothing is in the form that would attract children. So it's basically just a little square, and they all have a stamp of THC on them.
Okay, so no confusion.
No confusion, no.
You know, a lot of people have talked about recreational marijuana, you know, legal in some states. Colorado comes to mind, you know. You think that's in the near future for Ohio, or ways off?
I think that's a ways off, to be honest. Ohio's programs had a slow start. We still don't have all the cultivators up and running. We still don't have a lot of processors, and we still don't have a lot of dispensaries open. So I think by the end of this year, I think everything will be up and running, but for a recreational state, I think Ohio's a little bit of time away from that.
Mike, I really appreciate you coming on the show and informing our viewers about what you're doing there. And you know, I know a lot of people are getting relief, you know, from some serious medical conditions they've had that have been causing them pain. And I think anytime that someone can, you know, pain is one of the worst things you can have. And anytime that people can receive some type of relief from pain in a way that's monitored, managed, and without harming others, I mean, fantastic as far as I'm concerned. And glad that you're able to help those folks out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's our number one concern, is helping the patients.
And you know, with your history and story that you mentioned about your dad, I'm sure that it gives you some good feelings to know that some good's coming to other people, maybe as a result of what he went through. So
absolutely,
Mike, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
I appreciate it. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Sometimes bad things happen to good people. At Bordas & Bordas, when we see this, we do something about it. We can't prevent bad things from happening, but we can get justice when they do.
Bordas & Bordas, fighting for justice.
The Panhandle Difference.
It was a really easy process getting started with them, and then bam, it just took off. We've had a lot of gatherings here. We've had a whole basketball team. We've had lots of family dinners, birthday parties. I mean, I can't wait for holidays to come. It's a great kitchen. Honestly, it couldn't have turned out any better.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and let's start in the city of Pittsburgh, where a little bit of an ongoing social media battle with Antonio Brown may be finally coming to an end in Steelers world. I mean, AB being critical of Ben Roethlisberger. You know, Ben went on, did his first interview really since last season, and basically said that maybe he took things too far in some interviews last year, and kind of apologized to AB if he did something to offend him, and said, you know, he considered him a friend and hoped that they could still have a friendship. And Antonio Brown went on social media and said two-faced. Just that was his only comment. But now he's maybe said it's time to get back to business, so maybe that'll die down. But you know, interesting times for the Steelers and former Steelers. Le'Veon Bell, now rumors that he will be traded from the Jets. Perhaps the Jets fired a couple guys high up in the front office, and apparently Coach Case, who's the coach for the Jets, was never crazy about the idea of signing Le'Veon Bell in the first place, so they're looking to perhaps trade him. The Chiefs have been mentioned as a possible suitor, which would really, you know, I think be tough for the NFL, because the Chiefs are already playing at a very high level last year. San Francisco 49ers mentioned as a possibility. I hope that if Le'Veon Bell gets traded, it is to the NFC. Don't want the Steelers to be seeing him in Kansas City or elsewhere with a contender, because I think that could be really tough. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that, and when August rolls around, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Speaking of professional sports, the NBA playoffs have been a lot of fun, and you know, the Golden State Warriors, a team that I really closely follow. I went out to Game 5 in the Western Conference semifinals to see them play the Houston Rockets, and then the Western Conference Finals, they sweep the Portland Trail Blazers 4-0, and the first time in NBA history that a team swept another team when that team trailed more minutes in the series than it led. And not only did the Warriors trail, they trailed by double digits in at least 3 of the games, and had to mount serious comebacks without Kevin Durant, who didn't play in the entire series, without DeMarcus Cousins, who didn't play in the entire series, without Andre Iguodala, who didn't play in Game 4. You're missing, 2 guys that started all year, and another guy who came in as a starter and was starting, throughout the playoffs. Really tough, and just shows, the Golden State Warriors motto is strength in numbers, and I think that really is coming through in these playoffs. Draymond Green just, playing unbelievably. Steph Curry really stepping up, and those 2 guys in Game 4 of the Portland series, the first teammates in NBA playoff history to both record a triple-double in the same game. Of course, triple-double being, double digits in points, rebounds, and assists for those 2. So really remarkable. Then I'll move on to the NBA Finals for the 5th consecutive year. And how about Steve Kerr, their coach? He won 5 NBA rings as a player, 3 with the Chicago Bulls, 2 with the San Antonio Spurs. He already has several rings as a coach, and now going for another ring as a coach. This is his 10th NBA Finals. He already has 8 rings, going for a 9th. So pretty impressive run there for Steve Kerr as the Golden State Warriors coach. So it'll be fun to watch to see who comes out of the Eastern Conference between Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors. Of course, that series has been a good one, and that whoever comes out of that Eastern Conference will actually have home court advantage in the NBA Finals by virtue of them both having a better record than the Golden State Warriors in the regular season. So Golden State will have to win it without home court advantage in the NBA Finals. Turning to golf, Tiger Woods missed the cut last week at the PGA Championship. I said he would win, but that may have been my heart talking more than my head. He really hadn't touched the golf club too much since his Masters win. And the PGA Championship with the high rough and you have to drive into the fairway doesn't suit him real well anyway. But Brooks Koepka, how about him? He's won 4 of the last 7 majors. I mean, that's a remarkable run. Maybe tried to give it away a little bit there on Sunday, but really just distanced himself from the field so much the first few days of the tournament that he had some room to give on Sunday. But now the attention will turn to the U.S. Open, which will be held at Pebble Beach in June. And then, of course, the British Open will happen in July. So a couple more opportunities for Tiger Woods to get another major. I think the British may set up best for him, but he's played awfully well at Pebble Beach during the course of his career as well. So be fun to watch and see what happens there. I want to mention one thing about youth sports. Rule books are out there. They're available. Get them, read them. If you're going to go to youth sports games and criticize umpires, referees, etc., get a rule book. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Don't start yelling at coaches and referees if you don't know the rules. So check them out online or get the book or whatever it may be. And finally, I just want to mention again, this is our last show until August. We're going to take the summer off like many television shows do. Enjoy the summer. I want to enjoy it. I want the viewers to be able to enjoy it. And, there'll be some other stuff in our usual spot, but we will be back here in time for the start of college football season. Excited to talk to you about all of that. Have a great summer. We'll see you again in August on the Jamie Bordas Show.